Oh boy. All right. Okay. Yeah. This page hasn't been updated with yesterday's game yet. They're running a little behind over at Baseball Reference, but regardless, we have hit another season milestone 150 games down, 12 to go. And it is clench time. It is clench the cheeks time. And yeah, it hasn't been a fun week and a half, almost 2 weeks. The opportunity to basically end this thing once and for all has come and gone. If this team had played even average baseball over the last 10 games, we wouldn't be having this discussion, but here they are. And while it is still overwhelmingly, and I do want to stress that, overwhelmingly likely that this team gets into the playoffs, as of right now, yeah, it's hard to feel good about them. And obviously, making the playoffs is the main goal here. And if we accomplish that, that is something. But I think we as fans would like to see a little bit more, would like to see something beyond just making the playoffs and acting like making the playoffs is equivalent to winning the World Series. And right now, this team doesn't instill very much confidence that they're going to be able to do that. And grand scheme, that's fine. I suppose this team is unlikely to win the World Series even on their best day. Like Houston is just not the matchup. Houston's probably going to go ahead and go do it again. Maybe the Yankees catch fire. Those teams have higher peaks than we do. But it's not the position that it looked like we were going to be in a couple weeks ago. And it cannot help but concern you. Not so much for missing the playoffs. I don't have any real concern of that. For me to be concerned about that would be basically just being paranoid of everything, which I'm not. I'm not that kind of guy. But the fact that we're even having the conversation at all is bad. And I will say this. I have been a Scott Service supporter for basically this whole season. I've completely pushed back on people who throw fits about wanting to fire Scott and how he's a terrible manager. But that being said, I will say this. If it happens, if the collapse happens and we miss the playoffs, there's no way in the universe I'm going to be able to defend that. And there's no way I'm going to be able to say that Scott should stay on as manager. That would just be too big of a disaster in the most important part of the season. And yeah, okay. I got it out of my system because as of right now, I don't see it happening. I just don't. Too many things would have to go wrong. And the good news is most of the teams that could have threatened us are basically outie. Like the White Sox. The White Sox, at this point, you could stick a fork in them. They're, what, one game above 500 now? The Twins, same. They're both done. Both those teams have just completely hit a flat tire when they were supposed to be making their move. So, White Sox, Twins, you can basically forget about it. There's really only one team that can do it. It's the Orioles. And they are playing fairly well, but they also missed some opportunities to really make ground up on us while we were flailing around here the last couple weeks. And if you look at their recent schedule, they've been losing games to teams like the Tigers. They lost to, I think it was the Red Sox, teams that they should probably find a way to beat. They're not playing that well either. So unless this currently successful series against Houston is indicative of them suddenly getting their stuff right just in time here, it remains that it's very unlikely there's going to be anybody to steal our spot. And that says nothing of the fact that Toronto and Tampa Bay are going to have to run a gauntlet themselves. But it's not so much about that stuff anymore. It's not about me being concerned about us missing the playoffs. I'm really not. I'm aware that there is a possibility of it, but the odds are so thin. I can't be bothered to think about it really right now. But what is going on with this team? It's really bizarre that you have this sequence of games against such bad teams that have nothing to play for, and things continually go wrong. You had Robbie Ray, terrible start against the Angels. Some people think he's tipping his pitches. If that's happening, somebody needs to be on top of that. This team has a coaching staff, right? This team has people who study film. If he is tipping his pitches, why is somebody on this team not throwing themselves in front of that and putting a stop to it? You've got Castillo, another bad start against the Athletics. This kind of stuff can't happen. You have the offense completely no-showing a game against the Athletics where Robbie Ray completely did his job. Beautiful game by him, and it didn't matter. And look, Oakland, this Athletics team is maybe one of the worst teams in MLB history, especially right now when they're playing their kids. You got no business even being in a close game with them. So these little things going wrong, even the game we won, Kirby. Well, Kirby loses control for the first time in his career. It's like, how is this happening? Maybe to a certain extent, it's something you kind of just have to be able to shrug your shoulders about, because these guys have been pitching well. These guys have been pitching above their head. Castillo, for whatever reason, he's terrible whenever he's being caught by Casali, but when he gets caught by Cal, everything's cool. And Cal had the injury. Suarez has had the injury, which is a big deal on both ends. Our defense is nosedived without him, as has our offense. Now Julio's going to miss at least 10 games here, and that doesn't help, but you still have more going for you than the teams you are playing do. And yet here we are looking at these results, and I got to ask, what is going on with this lineup? That's the main thing. It's unbelievable how they completely no-show all these games, and then they make you think it's okay because they suddenly blow 8 or 9 runs across the plate in a game. And you're like, okay, we're good. And it just reverts so quickly. What is Ty France at this point? France has gone through 2 extremely bad stretches this season. Extended stretches where he just looks completely worthless at the plate. Mitch Haniger, after playing so well when he came back from that injury initially, is... I mean, last night he hits into 2 double plays, his first 2 at-bats, and then I think he strikes out the other 2 at-bats. He's waving at pitches a foot out of the zone. He's chasing stuff. He can't make contact. He can't catch up to fastballs. He suddenly looks like a guy who doesn't even belong in baseball. And I know that players go through stretches like this sometimes. But Haniger hasn't even played that much this year. Him playing like garbage is now most of this season for him. At this point, we can look at Mitch and say he's been bad for most of the year. I look at Ty France and I can say, well, it's not great, but he is actually playing good on the whole this year. But I can't even say that with Haniger. And it's you're starting to run out of guys you have faith in. Like, I like Winker. I think Winker is getting a really unfair rap right now. People need to step back and understand that batting average is an archaic stat. But at the end of the day, he is average at the plate, and he's atrocious in the field. Now, hopefully he never sees the field again. I think that may be what we end up seeing here, because he's useless out there. But bottom line is, even without that, he is still just a maybe slightly above average batter because of his batting eye. But you're starting to run out of those guys that you just have faith in to get it done. Crawford's Crawford. He's just continuing to play at that, like, he's been average for a little while now. Frazier, he's playing better, but overall he's still a below average bat. He's got absolutely no pop. Everything he hits is a single, almost. And that just tanks your value. And you add it all up, and that lineup I was talking about of, you just stacking guys that you believe in, it's not happening. Even guys like Haggerty, the Haggerty thing kind of turned into a pumpkin, right? He's still playing okay. He's still got value, but we're learning that he's not an everyday player. We're learning that against, half the pitchers in the league, basically, he is one of the worst batters. And we're at the point now where we're looking to people like Kelnick to save us, like he did against Oakland. He was basically the MVP of that game. We're looking at guys like Carlos Santana to save us, who, yeah, he's a good hitter. He's having a good season. I'm not saying anything negative about Santana, but he is a 36-year-old league average hitter right now overall. And these are the guys who are trying to bail us out now. It's not the Hanigers and the Frances of the world. It's these random guys who may not even be playing when the playoffs come around. If we want to have success in the playoffs, it's going to have to be because guys like Winker are at least playing competent. It's going to have to be because Suarez came back from an injury and Julio came back from the injury and played like they've been playing most of the year. It's going to have to be because guys like Crawford and Frazier are at least getting on base. It's been a brutal stretch at the worst time. Or, and I will say this, it might be the best time. Because if this team decides to collectively slump now, and they get out of that slump in time for the playoffs, then, well, you can't ask for anything more than that. That's beautiful. That's perfect. But are you going to have it? Is there going to be any fuel left when you flick the switch to on? Right now, it doesn't feel like it's a good bet, but I understand that this is the nature of baseball. That's the way baseball goes. Players go through extended slumps, even great players, and you got to go with it. And I still look at this lineup and I go, in theory, I believe in these guys, but part of me is also like, can we just get to the playoffs, get eliminated, and move on to next year? And hopefully next year you don't see guys like France and to a certain extent Julio and Suarez and Haniger just have their seasons wrecked by injuries. That is most of our lineup. And now we're headed into the last part of the season, and I don't know where those guys are in terms of their health. So it's just kind of unfortunate, but it is what it is. Other than that, like, the pitching is still overall fine. Like, I complained a little bit about the pitching, but overall, like, Robbie Ray's having a good year. Logan Gilbert's kind of righted the ship. He's pitching better. Kirby finally had a rough start against Oakland. We still won, and well, he's 24 years old. What do you expect? I know what Castillo can do. Obviously, it's really frustrating that he gets smacked around by Oakland twice in one season, but I'd rather he get smacked around by Oakland than get smacked around by the Guardians and the Yankees at the end of the day. And there's clearly some catcher relations going on where he works a lot better with one guy. Everybody works better with Cal than anybody else. And the bullpen tried to blow that game against Atlanta that I was at, but other than that, they're still fine overall. The bullpen management, I will say, is starting to get on my nerves. Just to briefly touch on it, it seems like this team just gives up on games when they're down by a run late. Like, they just throw out their worst bullpen players. They never touch Munoz. It feels like when they're trailing. They really try to avoid pitching guys like Sewald and Swanson when they're trailing. And I don't know, it's kind of weird. It's like you're down by one run. Maybe we don't have any confidence we're going to be able to make up that one run because of all the injuries. But it just seems like we are very quick to just throw our worst bullpen pitchers out there like Festa just because we're a little bit behind. So I don't know. It's still a really good bullpen. They're still pitching really well. They're not responsible for these losses necessarily. I know they obviously gave up the 2 runs to Oakland in that Robbie Ray start, but that game is on the offense all day, every day. So I can't put that on them. It's still a great bullpen. Still really good starters. Still guys that I'm willing to put my faith in when the playoffs get here. But I don't know. The lineup, for a few games there, it came together the way I was dreaming. But now here we are again, leaning heavily on guys like Toro and Moore and Torrens, and we're headed that way with Haggerty now. Haggerty's leveled off to the point where he's just kind of a platoon player, and Kelnick. And hey, Kelnick had a great game the other day, saved us in many ways. He had a hit last night as well, so he's playing well. Not saying anything negative about Kelnick specifically, but this is not where I wanted to be right now. But a few days can easily make all this go away. We get some of these players back, I'll feel completely different. So we just got to hold on and hope. And that's all I'm going to say. Go Mariners. Got another game today. See you guys later.